This is Frontier Opening Bell. I'm Temple Oshaju. We've got Ali Kansachu joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. Bosin Amofaye here, of course, at Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming through this beautiful week. Let's tee off with the markets. On a week-to-date basis, Nigerian Stock Exchange jumped by 1.27%, remaining at the 39,000 psychological position. The BRVM Stock Exchange in Ivory Coast was also positive on Friday by 22 basis points. You have the Egyptian Stock Exchange marginally up by 0.04% on Sunday after trading, and of course the Nairobi Stock Exchange with a very beautiful market capitalization maintained an upward position as well, up some 32 basis points. Then Johannesburg Stock Exchange on Friday was positive by 0.48%. Moving on now to the Eastern African headlines, we've got the Kenyan Treasury cutting the full year 2020-2021 borrowing target to 491 billion Kenyan shillings. The KNSE market capitalization rose by 20.88% to 2.44 trillion Kenyan shillings in the first quarter of 2021. Ethiopia is to get some $907 million from World Bank for COVID-19 fight and of course electricity boost. Then you have the Mauritius Commercial Bank injecting $60 million into Senegal's electrification project or program. That's something that will certainly bring about some return. Very good investment there. I'll bring that to you, to your stable now, Ali, for some analysis this Monday morning.
Yes, good morning and thank you. Let me first start with a headline which came across my desk earlier this morning, and that was that the Ministry of Finance in Ethiopia had received 2 bids for the telecom licenses. One was from MTN of South Africa, and the other was from Safaricom in a consortium with Vodafone, Vodacom, Sumitomo Corporation, and the UK's CDC. And according to the report I read on Reuters, a decision was likely to be made within a short space of time. The market had been awaiting this for quite a while, and it's interesting to see that MTN and Safaricom have stepped up. Others have fallen by the wayside. I expect the Ethiopians will want to make a quick guillotine decision on this in order for it to confirm that Ethiopia remains a very attractive destination market, particularly for the telecom people. So quite an important decision out of there. Kenya's Treasury cutting full year 2020-2021 borrowing target to 491 billion. It's a marginal cut, I'm afraid, from something like 494 billion. And therefore, it's not that material. The challenge for Kenya remains the degree of borrowing. You will remember the response Kenyans on Twitter had to the IMF package. More than 200,000 Kenyans signed up complaining about the IMF lending Kenya that level of cash. So there is a highly fraught, tense argument going on. A lot of the citizens don't trust the government to spend the money wisely. Kenya had a very good first quarter, as you said, up 20.88%. That's all about Safaricom, which is more than 50% of the market cap of the stock exchange, and a rebound in banking stocks, particularly those ones which saw fit to pay a dividend. Unfortunately, Absa skipped its dividend, and there's been a story out of South Africa regarding Absa, the resignation of the chief executive officer, and the way forward. Ethiopia, 907 million from the World Bank for COVID fight and electricity. I think that's a significant political statement in the context of the current environment Ethiopia finds itself in, with this situation in Tigray province. And I think David Malpass and the World Bank is signaling that he can look through that noise. I don't know whether the likes of the European Union will be willing to do the same, or also big supporters of Ethiopia, but it's worth thinking about it in that geo-economic perspective. Mauritius Commercial Bank injecting $60 million for Senegal's electrification. Look, we know there's a net electricity shortage in most of our countries, and if you could get in there on a well-adjusted, risk-adjusted transaction, it makes absolute sense. And I think that's an interesting development that Mauritius from the East Coast is backing Senegal to that extent on the West Coast.
Right, and thanks a great deal for all of these updates, Ali. I really appreciate it. Bosun, any comments?
I think I'll just speak to the Mauritius Commercial Bank investing in Senegal's power sector or electricity project. But we need to see more of this intra-Africa funding or financing across the board. We want to see Egyptian banks finance projects in Nigeria. We want to see similar things happen within East Africa and the Southern African corridor. The better for every one of us. I want to see Nigerian bank involved in projects in Tunisia or elsewhere, in Congo DRC, in Botswana, or is going to be in Chad or in Mali. See, and I think the intra-Africa trade, the AfCFTA, will be a game changer in that respect. We're likely going to see more of this Africa to Africa handshake moving forward.
Thank you very much for all of these, Bosun. Moving on now to the Western African headlines, we've got the Transcorp, which is a listed company in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, is releasing its first quarter 2021 earnings. The group's revenue is up at 24.4 billion naira. Gross profit is also up by some 2.49 billion naira, while you have profits after tax at 2.4 billion naira. Nigerian breweries got a first quarter earnings out as well. Operating profit is also up by some 14.4 billion naira. Profits surged by more than 39%. Dangote Cement Series 1 book build under its 300 billion naira 3-tranche fixed rate bonds closes on April the 29th. That is sometime this week. Angola's 2020-2021 oil licensing round has got the 9 onshore starts April 30th and of course ends on June 9th, June 10th when other parts of the program will be concluded. AfCFTA, first meeting of dispute settlement body, holds today. The BRVM Stock Exchange has got Filthy Sacks net income climbing by some 91.45% to 3.55 billion CFA franc in 2020. That's a full year earnings there. Bosun, let me come to you with these headlines. You've got quite a number of the corporate stories. Imagine from
quite a whole lot of corporate stories. I think I'll allow Ali to speak to the Angola oil licensing rounds and what to expect from that particular development when it happens, I think by the weekend. But speaking to Nigerian breweries, I think it's good news that we got a lot less virus lockdown. So as soon as folks begin to get the kind of, 500 people are allowed to hold parties, religious services are allowed at some extent. I think everybody just went to town. Temple, you were in Lagos for a couple of days. Weddings and a whole lot of events are happening back to back as if wedding is going out of fashion.
And the bars are open.
Fashion, by the way. So Ali, I wish you were here. It's going to be all Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. So folks are drinking themselves. So Nigerian breweries are back, and so there's no brainer that the brewers are making money in the first quarter. As soon as the New Year celebrations came in, and folks says, "Look, I escaped the virus for 2020. I'm gonna go say thank the Lord." So the next thing is you hit the next beer parlor, the next down the street, and folks were drinking themselves all the way. And as we enter into the second quarter of the year, there's no let-up. My wife's junior brother is getting married next month of May, and it's going to be all Nigerian breweries all over again, from Thursday out to Friday and to Sunday. So those guys are in money night. If you want to invest, Ali, invest in Nigerian breweries. The beer market is up. Kenya is on lockdown. Nairobi is on lockdown right now. There's a lot of curfew, so I'm sure you guys can't do as much as we do. And that flows also into Transcorp story. Remember, it has the largest hotel chain in Nigeria with the Transcorp Hilton. So a lot of governments and private sector events are starting to take place at Transcorp Hilton, and folks can now go with some level of capacity into these hotels. These are where the politicians, the big boys in Nigeria's businesses, the big boys in the diplomatic community, the DFIs, all of them patronize Hilton because it's very safe. It's the #1 destination in Abuja. So that is improving very massively for Transcorp, and that is showing you the bottom line. When you look at the bottom line, for about 2.4 billion naira for Transcorp in profit after tax in 2020 first quarter, Transcorp made just about a few hundred million of naira. Then it went straight to almost 2.5 billion, 2.5 billion naira. That shows that, look, Nigeria is benefiting from a very gentle, let me put it that way, mildly speaking, the virus infestations and the number of fatalities that we'll see. So we need to thank our stars for having that good fortune. I think that's what I have to say about those corporate earnings. Thank you.
I appreciate that, boss, and thanks a great deal. Ali will bring to you the Angola story. You've got the round of oil well licensing coming up soon.
So can I just quickly follow up on what Burson was talking about in terms of Nigeria breweries? You know, the contrast here in Kenya is very stark because we currently have a curfew. We've all got to be at home at 8 p.m. You know, basically that's dampened down the hospitality trade completely. On Sunday, I was just having a coffee at one of our top hotels. There were literally about 4 people in the hotel. If you look at tourism arrivals, those have fallen off a cliff. So, and it's quite a big portion of our economy. Obviously, entertainment and tourism are, you know, a chunky part of the economy. So we still haven't come out of this. Of course, what I found interesting about what Burson was saying is, you know, you have this pent-up demand. The day you do release it, you see a big surge. So I think all these folks were waiting for that day. It's not clear to me when that will happen, though our viral load and infections have been on the downside for the last couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see when the government reopens this very important economy, which is 5 counties, Nairobi, Nakuru, Naivasha, pretty much 60% of GDP. Turning to your Angola story, you know, there have been a number of news reports that have come out lately. There was a Bloomberg report about Dos Santos, Isabel's, I think, got her feet up in Dubai. And pretty much look to me now as if the new administration under Lorenzo have wrestled quite a few assets back from the Dos Santos family under their control, and I think that sends a very positive signal globally that, you know, there's a new way of doing business. More than that, I also really like what I'm hearing from the finance minister, very young African lady in her 30s. She's looking to do some IPOs. She's looking to sell 30% of Senegal. This is exactly what I like to see. You know, there's no business for the Angolan government to be in all of these businesses. They don't have the competency. This has been proven over the last few years. So, you know, the news flow I'm getting from Angola is actually on the up. And now we've got this oil licensing round 9 onshore. I mean, you know, the problem Angola had was they pledged a lot of their oil production for loans that they got from China predominantly, and therefore the cash flow has not been there to stimulate the recovery. So I think if they can get support now for this fresh round of oil licensing, $60, $65, we've been here a while, we look as if we've found a new base, notwithstanding the awful scenario that's unfolding in India, which is a big consumer of oil. So my takeaway with Angola is, you know, to start having a look at it closely. I think, you know, the president, people were criticizing him for being too slow, but he had a very difficult task to uproot a regime that had been in power for more than 30 years and to do it in a way that did not completely crater the economy. I think he's doing extremely well, and I think investors, I quite like the look of the Angolan Kwanza, for example, as a starter trade, going long that, running the carry. I think a lot of the bad news is in the price.
Thank you very much for these updates and analysis, Ali. Really appreciate that. This takes us down to the Southern African headlines before us, where you've got Mango Airline giving us update that state funds are drying up, no salaries for next month, and so they're probably going to be grounded. Absa saying, the finance union of Absa is saying that morale, confidence is running low among workers. In Zimbabwe, you've got the biggest bank there, CBZ, starting voluntary job cuts on virus impact. And of course, in Botswana, Power Metal Resources completes Molopo Farm in. Kibali Gold Mine produces 191,000 plus in ounce in the first quarter of this year. That's Q1 update for Barrick Gold, a major company in the southern part of Africa. Let me start with you with these headlines again, Ali, for your analysis.
Okay, so Mango Airlines, you know, the story of African Airlines, with the exception of Ethiopian Airlines, is an annus horribilis last year, and really it hasn't got any better yet. We have not seen a recovery in passenger traffic, and therefore those problems that were there in the back end of last year have merely compounded. It's entirely unfortunate. Of course, Mango, reasonably low-priced airline in that southern African region. Bear in mind that, you know, tourism has been very, very low because South Africa was hit so hard by the virus. Now it's doing a lot better. But I think the airline business, which had become a kind of, you know, every country wanted an airline type scenario. And I just don't know how these guys are going to survive. In many cases, South African Airlines is one case, Kenya Airways is another, and you can just, the list goes on. Namibia had to shut down. Absa, we touched on this story. This is the resignation of the chief executive officer. What I found interesting was that they have not got a substantive appointment for the rest of Africa. And they haven't had one for quite a while, since Peter McClary unfortunately passed away. He was a very charismatic figure. They haven't put somebody in charge of that. And to me, that seems very, very bizarre because of the importance of the rest of Africa to Absa's business since they broke off from Barclays some 3 years ago. But what that thing says, confidence low amongst workers, speaks to a situation which they need to get on top of relatively quickly. I'll just touch on Botswana, if I may. I was looking through the report about diamonds, and you know, they had like the biggest build-up in diamond inventory at the back end of last year. And the first quarter of this year, De Beers, Alrosa, and Botswana are all confirming the highest demand they've seen for 10 years. So diamond buyers, a bit like the Nigerian beer drinkers, you know, you can't keep them down for long. They come back with a bang eventually.
Thank you so much for this insight, Ali. Bosin, you've got quite a number of other stories, especially the jobs market stories.
Yes, I just want to say very quickly that as we were conducting this show, news just came in from Reuters that Total has suspended the LNG activities in Mozambique indefinitely because of the security threat. And this is one really bad news hitting the investment markets in Africa, foreign direct investments in Africa, starting this Monday. This is pretty bad news starting the new week. This is almost about $20 billion project. Almost everybody is in this project from EFDB. Everybody's interested. And now the whole problem has blown up. And now Total says they're suspending this LNG, a bespoke project in Mozambique. I'm sure Ali has some words on that as well. How we've gone down to this point.
Yeah, no, sorry, I missed that. Forgot about that. That's really the biggest story in that part of the world. They've cited force majeure. Of course, there's been a raging insurgency. The Mozambican government has been very reluctant to invite its neighbors to come and help them deal with the insurgency. For what reason, I don't know. But ultimately, this was a $20 billion, $60 billion investment project over the whole timeline. It would have transformed the Mozambican economy, second biggest gas resource after Qatar, and nothing's going to happen now for another 12 months at the very least. So some very big losses, but I think just as important is to ask Mozambique, what is their strategy to deal with this in the north? It's gotten more and more, worse and worse and worse. And it seems they've tried to bring in Putin's guy, this private military contractor known as Putin's chef. They've tried all types of solutions, but seem unable to deal with it. And when you look at, these guys seem to be able to just walk into places like Pemba, Parma, at will and do whatever they want. So I think it's a big problem. It's a huge hit for the Mozambican economy. And it's not something that you can turn around in a week or two. Total have basically bailed out for the foreseeable future.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Ali. Let's now close the show with the Northern African headlines. You've got Raya selling 9 million own shares in American National Bank of Egypt for 480 million Egyptian pounds. Nile Pharmaceuticals posts net profit of 60 million Egyptian pounds in 9 months of the 2020-2021 financial year results. Black markets is tearing apart South Sudan new FX markets. Morocco is planning a 2 billion dirham bond loan by a public offer, and Tunisia has asked the International Monetary Fund for a new facility program to support economic reforms. We understand the Prime Minister will be heading to Washington on the 3rd of May to consolidate this particular request very soon. Ali, it's over to you.
Yeah, I think, first of all, let me start with the Tunisia story. It's not going to be very straightforward for Tunisia to get that support. And I think that's why you're seeing the Prime Minister lobbying Washington to try and push that over the line. It's something we need to keep an eye on. I mean, Tunisia is an interesting economy. Biggest problem, of course, is being tourism, because it's a big tourist destination for the Europeans in particular. But, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But it's not a shoo-in, this IMF request, unlike some other ones we've seen of late. If I can touch on South Sudan, the new FX market, the black market, I remember going to South Sudan when they got their independence, and I remember the joy on the streets. And I just don't know, how they're going to get back to those days when there was so much potential and goodwill. The situation has become more and more difficult. The currency has come under more and more pressure. Cost of living has increased. It's become a really tricky situation. And I'm just not sure that they have really a proper plan to reconcile themselves and get back on a better footing. I think a lot of the people who supported them, the US, particularly the church, which was a big supporter of the Christians in South Sudan, have lost a lot of faith in these guys. And therefore, you've got a very complex situation. They've got to repair it. They might try and get back on the coattails of Khartoum, where Khartoum is seeming to make much more progress, and post-Bashir has become a much more civilized government. So maybe they can try and tag along on the coattails of that. But they've got to do something, because the place really is under tremendous pressure.
Thank you very much for that, Ali. Bosun, any final words?
Yeah, I agree with you. See, as far as South Sudan is concerned, the black market is always there to make nonsense of anything you're trying to do on the official window, and Nigeria can testify to that. The thing that South Sudan has to do is to make sure that this black market has not become so entrenched as you have in Nigeria, such that it becomes very difficult, if almost impossible, to impeach them moving forward. Look at Zimbabwe trying to balance this act of FX over time, try to set up this new currency, set up a new interbank market. Now there are a whole lot of allegations against banks and big telcos about playing some games with the FX market. Look, FX market in any economy that is suffering, such as Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and South Sudan, the black market, the arbitrage guys, the speculators find it a very fertile ground to speculate. So that's the whole idea. Every dollar that comes in, they soak it in, and that's the whole idea of that kind of. So it takes the whole bold moves like I had with Egypt. Egypt was once almost under a similar situation until they were able to take very bold moves some years ago and push the black market guys out. If you don't take that bold step and just bite the silver bullet, they will hold you down, and forever you remain down. And that's the situation. You try to get out of it, It's almost impossible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali, executive. I beg your pardon. Thank you very much, Bosun, executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. I appreciate your insight. Ali Kansachu, Reach Frontiers Nairobi founder.
Ali is also an executive producer, if you know.
That's interesting.
He does shows before you know.
Interesting. That's good to know. So perhaps he will produce us one of these next time. Thank you, gentlemen, for your insight on the show this morning. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful and productive week ahead. This has been the show for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Temple Ashaju. I'll see you next time.